Welcome to the John Morris Show. I am your humble as always host, John Morris from johnmorrisonline.com. And in this episode of the show, I'm going to be answering another one of your questions, and I am excited to answer this one because I want to kill this idea once and for all. I want to nail this baby down so that nobody ever has to answer this question again. I want to answer it so well that nobody even dares to consider the other side of this issue. Or something like that. All right, so before I dive into answering this question, well, first you probably want to know what the question is. And the question is it bad form to negotiate for an advance or money up front when securing a freelancing assignment? So, again, I want to kill this question dead once and for all. Now, before I do that, as I mentioned in my last episode, I am asking for your support. I am debating, have been going back and forth. I'm really hoping I can release my upcoming course, The Truth About Making Money on Elance and Odesk, here on YouTube. However, and in case you missed that episode, the debate is I want to release it here on YouTube because I know I'll reach more people. However, I've been considering releasing as a paid course over on Udemy. So what I'm asking for is if you are at all able and you've gotten any value from me in this podcast or any of the courses that I've put here on YouTube, if you could support me in some way. And I've mentioned several ways, either donating directly here on YouTube, purchasing one of my courses over on BitTorrent, even though they're here really on YouTube for free. You get the downloads over there. So if for some reason I decided to take the courses off YouTube or make them paid or whatever, if you get them over there on BitTorrent, you actually get the downloads, the source code, the videos, everything for a very, very small fee. So consider doing that. Also, I've linked to my recommended resources page where I have a number of products that I recommend, some of which happen to be affiliate products, some of which I've even got you some pretty wicked discounts on over there. So if you are in the market for some sort of course or book or training on web design, web development, freelancing, etc., if you could head on over there to my recommended resources page and check that out first and see if any of those appeal to you, I would appreciate that. And last but not least, if you're not able to do any of that, if you would at the very least share this episode or any of my other courses with someone you know who would benefit from it, then I would greatly appreciate that. All right, so with that out of the way, let me dive into this question. So again, is it bad form to negotiate for an advance or money up front when securing a freelancing assignment? So I think probably a lot of freelancers, especially freelance web developers and designers, face this question because it's the idea of, do I make it more difficult for myself to get work? And I think a lot of freelancers believe that they shouldn't ask for some sort of upfront payment or earnest money upfront, just because it could limit the amount of work that they're going to get. And especially when starting out, that's not something that you necessarily want to do. You don't necessarily want to severely limit the amount of people that will work with you. And also, oftentimes it just seems kind of cheesy, and it seems, people aren't always necessarily comfortable asking for money. So it becomes something that is difficult for freelancers to do. And I think a lot of freelancers have accepted the notion that they shouldn't ask for any sort of earnest money up front. However, that is wrong, in my opinion. That is the wrong approach to take. Now, let me tell you why. It's wrong because the people who are serious about working with you, The people that are going to be good long-term clients for you, the people that you're going to want to work with time and time again, the people who have the projects that can sustain your business, the clients that are the quality clients that you really want to try and find and attract, those people will have no problem with some sort of upfront earnest money. Now, you need to make sure, or I need to make sure, that the way that I position it myself is, I don't position as I'm asking for an advance. The way I position it is I'm asking for a down payment, so I know that they're serious. Now, I have direct experience with this. One, I've worked with plenty of clients. I've worked with some high-profile clients, but all of the clients that I've worked with where I've asked for this sort of upfront down payment, I've never had an issue with, and I've never had an issue with any of those clients paying me afterwards. However, prior to that, and having learned, this is how I learned this lesson the hard way, I had accepted clients without any sort of down payment. And I had all kinds of payment issues. And I have, in fact, now over the years, developed a sort of radar when I get quote requests for ones that are serious and ones that aren't. And in some cases, when I get a quote request, I won't even respond to it because I know better. And that's just from having been burnt by it. So, serious clients don't have a problem paying a down payment. They understand it. Most of them are business owners themselves. And when they engage in transactions, guess what? They probably get a down payment. Especially if you're talking about a sort of web design or web development project that could be $5, $10, $15, $20,000. Look at any other industry. Pretty much no industry allows you to purchase some sort of service or product for that much money without any kind of down payment or guarantee that you can actually pay the full price and that you will and that you intend to. So all of my contracts include payment terms that require a non-refundable down payment. So here's how I handle the whole payment issue as a whole, not just that particular piece. I require 10% upfront for any project that I work on. So before I ever start any work, I need a signed contract and I need 10% of whatever the fee for that project is upfront, and it's non-refundable. And I can guarantee you that weeds out a lot of people who would try to screw you over, who aren't really that serious or are unsure about their project. People aren't willing to put down that much money if they're not 100% invested and sure and willing and able to pay. So you absolutely should ask for that up front, especially when you're first starting out, because when you're first starting out, you're not going to be able to tell the people who are going to screw you over from the people who aren't. It takes that happening for you to be able to do that. And I think it would be better if you just avoided it altogether. So again, 10% upfront before I do anything plus a signed contract. Then after that, it is 60% before I put anything on their servers. So I build the entire project on my own servers. Now I make it available to them online so they can access it. Now I primarily do WordPress projects. So I'll build a WordPress install online. They can log in, they can see it, they can use it, etc. But it's on my domain. So I own it. Now this is critical because property rights are pretty clear here. If you upload something to a client's server, You can't just go on there and delete it if they don't pay you. It's their property. And the only way that you can make changes or do anything is if they give you permission. Even if it's the project that you created for them, if you put it on their servers, you've essentially lost control. So I never put anything on the client servers until I get a second 60% payment. So I've gotten a 10% down payment and a 60% follow-up payment. So I've received 70% of the fee for the project before I ever put anything on the client servers. Now, if I were to get screwed over at that point, yeah, I'd be out the 30%, but that's a heck of a lot better than being out 100 or 90%. And again, the people who get that far in the process, I've never had anybody actually do that, where I've given them the project, they've paid me the 60%, and then they just disappeared and they didn't have me finish helping them set up and polish everything off and make sure everything was working and then give me the 30%. I've never had it happen because at that point, they're so invested, they're so serious. And again, a lot of times the clients that you're working with in this scenario, because they're serious, they have reputations to uphold as well. And so they're not going to screw over a developer and then have that developer talk about them. So I've just never had it happen. So again, 10% non-refundable up front, 60% after they've seen it all on my servers and they say, hey, it looks good, it's ready to go, and they want it on their servers. Before I do that, I get a 60% payment, and then the final 30% once it's on their servers, it's all set up, we've gone through all the tweaks and they know how to use everything and they're all fat and happy, then I ask for that last 30%. It works incredibly well, and I've never had issues with it. I've had clients who didn't hire me because they didn't want to pay the 10% up front. And that's fine. I don't want you to hire me, because if you're not willing to pay that 10% up front, then I'm very skeptical about you being willing to pay that 90% on the backside. So now you also need to make sure that you develop some trust up front. So you need to establish trust through your portfolio, your services pages, by creating content, by creating an online presence and profile that has credibility and is trustworthy. You need to do all that, but you need to do that anyway. And if you're getting clients and you have that, and you're getting people who are giving you requests and so forth, you need to make sure they're serious, and you need to collect that upfront 10% non-refundable payment just to make sure you don't get screwed over. And then I highly suggest you follow a similar pattern to what I do for the last 90%. All right, so that is how I handle that as a whole. And I definitely don't think it's bad form to ask for money up front when you're securing a freelancing assignment. That's the only way you're going to be able to weed out the serious from the non-serious. All right, so that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Hopefully I killed that question dead once and for all. If you haven't yet, then be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you happen to be listening to it on. And if you liked it and got value from it, please like it so I know that this is the kind of content that you are after. Also, if you have a question for me, you can head on over to johnmorrisonline.com/Quora and ask me your question there, or invite me to your question over there, and I'll try to get on the show. You can also tweet me at JPMorris, and I will try to answer those questions on the show as well. Finally, if you haven't yet, you can head on over to johnmorrisonline.com and download my free cheat sheet, 7 strategies to turn your code into cash, where I show you 7 different ways that you can monetize your coding skills and what you need to know for each one in order to be successful. All right. Again, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.